I'm Jolina Petersheim, the author of The Outcast and the Midwife, and today I have something very exciting to show you. I just received the advanced reader copies of The Midwife. You can just see right here, advanced reader copy. So it's not for sale, but it's very special to my heart, and I actually cried harder when I received this book than I did with my debut, The Outcast. This story has grown very close to my heart over the past year of writing and during the editorial process. In the fall of this past year, my husband and I, we miscarried a child at 10 weeks. And it's been a journey of healing and of faith and of hope. And just this story that encompasses all of those things has really brought a lot of just faith. It's reawakened the faith in my heart, and so I pray that it will also awaken the faith in your heart as well, readers, because all of us have lost in some capacity, and we have to receive healing for that loss. So I'm just going to read a little bit about my the note from the author, just so you can kind of get a vision of this story and the journey that it's taken me on, that I pray will take you on as well. I have always heard that the most heartfelt novels are those drawn from personal experience. My daughter was 12 weeks old when I began writing The Midwife. Staring at her perfect, delicate fingers wrapped around one of my own, I struggled with the need to protect her in our fallen world. I believe that overcoming fear with faith, by placing my trust in my daughter's creator rather than my abilities as her mother, was a real-life experience that I would have to learn, and therefore apply to my main character, Rhoda Mumal, as well. Little did I know that, 15 months later, my own faith would be tested as one of my worst fears came true. I miscarried a child. But I do not care for that term, miscarried. I was more than just a carrier, a means to an end. For those 10 weeks of my too-short pregnancy, I became a mother of two. My firstborn, toddler-aged daughter, and, I believe, a boy, my son. I imagined tall, book-end children with their father's straight-across grin and sparkling hazel eyes. Instead, on a black, drizzling night, my husband and I found ourselves burying our second-born next to a cedar rail fence. The days after were hard, and yet, even in death, life goes on. Laundry needed folded, diapers needed changing, tomatoes needed gathering from the garden before the incoming frost. I took long walks with my daughter and spread petals from the rosebush across my son's grave. After harvest celebration, I kissed my infant nephew's cheek goodbye, and then continued cleaning up the detritus of our evening meal, when suddenly I had to go lie down, realizing that kissing my nephew was the closest to kissing my son that I'd ever come to on earth. My publisher kindly granted an extension of my editing deadline for The Midwife, but writing for me has often been more of a catharsis than a job. Therefore, in the mornings, I peeled back the covers, went out to the living room, and turned on the computer. As I stared through the French doors of the ember sun rising over the valley, I could suddenly see the midwife Rhoda's loss through another grieving mother's eyes. I wept with her as I reread scenes that my own fingers had typed, but that now felt like something God had devised as he portended my loss, and knew that this story would bring healing to my own soul. 1 week after we lost our baby, I was standing in church when the worship team began reading passages from the Bible. A few recited promises I long ago memorized, the urging of my parents were my teachers. And then one man started reading from Lamentations, a book I'd read but had never spoken to me before. I remember my affliction and my wondering, the bitterness and the gall. I will remember them, and my soul is downcast within me. Yet this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for his compassion never fails. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. I say to myself, the Lord is my portion. Therefore I will wait for him. Hearing those words, I closed my eyes and felt the warmth of the sun slanting through the kaleidoscope of stained glass windows. Tears began streaming down my face. It may sound strange, but I knew those verses weren't only meant for me, but for the midwife, Rhoda, as well, who feels as real to me as anyone I have ever known. Then I realized that those verses weren't only meant for us grieving mothers, they're also meant for my readers who have suffered loss. And haven't we all suffered loss in one form or another? And so I pray that the midwife's story will remind you, even in your darkest nights and most broken places, that whenever you call to mind the Lord's great love, you will find healing and hope. So that's the end of my note from the author that I wrote shortly after we miscarried our child, and it brought it all back, the beauty and the sorrow. It was just such a mixture, and God's presence was very strong in our lives and has continued to remain strong. And so I pray that through this broken place that we'll be able to extend hope to you all who have lost maybe a miscarriage, maybe a spouse, a parent, a sibling. I know a lot of us in this fallen world have suffered loss. So I pray that, yes, through this story you will find healing and hope, and the midwife will birth something in your own spirit. Until then, blessings to you.